about I guess my statement would be that this arrest is a direct result of the outstanding work of the investigators that work for the York-Poquoson Sheriff's Office. I think they're the finest that we have in the area, and how quickly this case was resolved with an arrest is a direct result of their great work.
You know, something I think is worth noting is that the arrest came the same day that the body was discovered, 17. So I'm curious, we're talking about Elizabeth Castro arrested in this case. Can you explain and walk us through what exact evidence was used by investigators and how it led to, you know, a same-day arrest, basically?
Well, once we got to the scene and started the investigation, it became obvious fairly quickly to my investigators that this was the person that had been reported missing in the city of Newport News on the 8th of February. So we started working backwards from there and went to Haas's Deli and were able to determine that the victim had left there at approximately 1:10 a.m. And at that point in time, the investigators started using some technology we have here in the county, and you've heard about probably at a lot of different localities, called Flock, the license plate reader system. So utilizing that system, we were able to identify a vehicle that was leaving the county at approximately 1:30 a.m. in that time frame, that when we saw it enter the county, did not have any damage to the front end of it, and when it was leaving at 1:30, it did have damage on the right front, which would be consistent with someone on the side of the road where our victim was. So using that information, we were able to start checking with various localities, and we were able to find out that the Newport News Police Department had made a traffic stop on this vehicle in the early morning hours the same morning, and had actually arrested Elizabeth Dodd Castro for driving under the influence, and had noted the severe damage to the right front of the vehicle as well as the windshield. And we worked with the Newport News Police Department with some of their videos to further our investigation. We learned that the vehicle had been impounded for the DUI arrest. So we were able to go to the scene, secure the vehicle, bring it back here, collect physical evidence, and then based on all of the other information that we had gathered during the course of the day, we were able to obtain the warrants that we obtained for Elizabeth Dodd Castro, charging with involuntary manslaughter, DUI related, and the hit and run felony.
So does this mean that when she was arrested by Newport News Police, you said?
Yes.
Was there any indication at that time that she had struck an individual? And I guess that leads my question into, at the time of your arrest, your agency's arrest, was she even aware of that fact, or?
I'm not going to go into the specific details of her statement, but based on what we learned from the Newport News Police Department in the course of their investigation, that aided in the probable cause for her arrest.
She was arrested for driving under the influence. Do you know if, have we been able to confirm if she was at that same restaurant, bar, Haas's Deli, that night? My
investigators did find video of her at Haas's Deli the same night as the victim was there, yes. She left shortly before he left.
Did they have any contact with each other at that time? Do we know?
I don't believe there's any contact between the two of them, no.
Can we clarify where the point of contact was? He was obviously found in a section of the road that is in between kind of businesses and in between shopping districts, it seems. Is that where he was struck and ultimately killed?
We believe it right there in that general area is where the impact occurred, very close to where he was located.
Yes, okay. Kind of walk us back, going back to the scene, can you walk us through how deputies first responded to the scene and what led them to determine that this was a hit and run? So
about 8:30 a.m. yesterday morning, we received a call from a citizen that was walking northbound in the southbound lane, which is approximately where the victim was, and observed a body, was the call, lying face down not far from the shoulder of the road. Uniformed patrol deputies showed up, verified all the information, so that's when the investigations division was called out and the investigation started. We did a crime scene search. We did find some vehicle parts that appeared to come from a crash right there at the scene as well. And at that point is when we became aware of the missing persons report from the City of Newport News for the victim from the 8th of February, and that's where we started the investigation.
Do you know how long approximately the body had been lying there?
Well, apparently he was last seen about 1:10 a.m. leaving Hosses on February the 8th, so he was found yesterday morning at 8:30, so right at 3 days, a little over 72 hours.
Has the sheriff's office, I know you guys have obviously been in contact with the family, is there anything they want the public to know, the family, anything they've said?
No, the communication we've had with them is obviously, first of all, they're devastated that their loved one was found like this, and our hearts go out to them. But there was some sense of relief that there was a final disposition and the fact that there was a conclusion of an arrest made in this case. They were very grateful for that.
Absolutely. Can we expect any additional charges?
I don't believe so at this point in time. It looks like the involuntary manslaughter, DUI related, and the hit and run felony are going to be appropriate. The case is still being investigated. More evidence is being obtained, so if that was to change, we'll make a release.
Would you mind explaining, obviously hit and run cases involve a point of information where, you know, investigators are saying there is a, basically based on what we see and the evidence that we see, that this person should have known that they hit something, right? It's not just involuntary manslaughter, but there's a hit and run charge as well. Would you mind just kind of, I guess, explaining the difference between, in this case, you know, there's involuntary manslaughter, but hit and run involves an element where the person should have come back, they should have known, they, you know, based on, as you said, the damage on the vehicle, there's an expectation for that driver to turn around.
Well, again, you're right. The first thing that we would look at is the extent of damage, the right front end, the extent of damage to the windshield, how badly that was damaged. I'm not going to go into any statements or evidence of any statements that this person may have made, but all of those things led to the conclusion that this person should be charged with hit and run felony.
My last question is flock camera related. Obviously, a lot of the localities have adopted this technology in recent years, and I'm hoping, one, do you have details on how many flock cameras there are in the county, and just you know, how useful and how often they're used by investigators in cases like this?
Well, we have 27 flock cameras in the county right now, and they're an extremely useful law enforcement tool. I mean, I could sit here and talk to you for an hour about cases that we've solved. I mean, these cameras played a major role last October in a homicide out in an apartment complex not far from here where a young 19-year-old male was shot and killed. They were very instrumental in that. We had a situation a few months ago where we got an alert that a teenager that was involved in an abduction from New Jersey, when that vehicle came into the county with her in the truck, we were able to locate it very quickly and resolve that situation. So they're an extremely useful law enforcement tool, and they played a major role in this case here.
Do we have any reason to believe that these two people knew each other?
No, there's no reason to believe that. But they were both in the same location for a few hours the night of February the 7th into the early morning hours of February the 8th, but there's no indication that they interacted with each other.
And was she traveling southbound when she struck him?
She came into the county northbound from the direction of Newport News City line, made a U-turn at some point on Route 17 and was southbound when the impact occurred with the victim.
Sheriff, I lied. I had one more question. I think this is important. The distinction of flock cameras versus just regular surveillance cameras, you know, I'm hoping you can kind of explain the difference between why a flock camera is a lot more, you know, useful or has different uses than just regular surveillance video that you may find from a 7-Eleven, right? Even though maybe you see the same car, you see visually see the same vehicle, there is an operational difference, correct, between flock cameras and like just surveillance?
Well, they do operate differently. They're both very important because there's going to be some other surveillance video that comes out of this from businesses, and particularly from Hoss's itself, that was instrumental in the investigation of this case. The major difference with the flock camera system is the photographs are taken based on motion detection. So when a vehicle passes by one of these, it takes several photographs, and then the software that's embedded in the system determines which of the photographs is the best, and so you get a picture of the vehicle along with the license plate. So it also gives you the ability to search the database as well, that if you had a general description of a vehicle, you can put that information into the flock system, and to some degree it'll filter out the vehicles that don't match that description, as a pickup truck as opposed to a passenger car or a trailer or those types of things. And if you do have a license plate number that you know is involved in or suspect to be involved in criminal activity, you can input that into the system as well, and it'll only find the photographs that relate to that license plate number. So it's an extremely valuable law enforcement tool.
I have one more question. I know you said you can't get into the evidence of this, but do we perhaps know if maybe she hit the victim unknowingly? Perhaps she was unaware, or was it she voluntarily hit the victim and then kept on going?
Well, based on our investigation and the reason we obtained the charges we did is we believe that she was aware that she hit the victim.
What sort of evidence was collected from her car?
I can't go into that right now.
All right, that's all I have.
Thanks, Sheriff.
Mm-hmm.